Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Ark, where we learn the stories of the people who make up Holy Trinity Cathedral. We've been away for a little while for the holidays, but we are back in a new year with a new person to hear the stories of the people who make up this Ark that we have here at the Cathedral in Charlotte. We hope you've had a healthy and happy holiday season. And you know, when we think about the Ark, we think about the different people who make up the people and the positions that we have on a ship and the positions we have in the church. And every good crew member needs good education. And that education needs to be led by someone who is educated themselves and who has spent time preparing to teach others and to educate others. And the person we have today on our show is that person who serves in that capacity here at Holy Trinity, and we're really excited to have her on the show. And I'm also excited because she's also a friend, and she's a young adult who is doing some great things in the life of Holy Trinity Cathedral. So with that, our first guest of the new year of 2021 is none other than Miss Sarah Vastis. Sarah, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me.
So, Sarah, I want to first off ask a very simple question, is that how was your childhood raised, or how was your childhood presented by your parents in a way that the church was implemented into your life and in your upbringing? And I know you've got siblings. How was that a part of your life growing up?
I had a beautiful childhood in the church. I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee, and born and raised in the St. George Greek Orthodox Church there. And my parents were really active. They've always been active. My mom was in the choir. My dad was on parish council. My mom was Philoptochos president at one point. She helped with the dance group. So anything that we had available to us at St. George, we were involved in. It was different than Holy Trinity. It was much, much smaller. My graduating class, this just to give you an example, was considered a very large class, and we had 7 people in our class. So, but it made us all very close. We were all like siblings. And I was just used to go. It wasn't just that we were active though. We went to church every Sunday. Sunday was for church. Sunday was family day. We went to all the services during Holy Week. My mom would take us out of school on Friday, and we would spend the whole day at church preparing for Pascha. My mom's always been very faithful. My dad is a convert, and he converted when my mother was pregnant with my brother, so that was like 1980. I'm giving away my age. But he's always he's a more scientific mind. He always has to know the answers to questions. So he was a beautiful person to have in the household as well, because he knew everything. You know, he wasn't going to convert unless it was actually, truly, in his heart, and he knew exactly everything. But by the grace of God, it's always by the grace of God, he was able to see that it was the truth. And anytime I had a question about the faith, I would go to my dad. I'd say, why do we do this? Why do we do that? And he would have the answer for me. But my mom would actually show me with her hands. She would show me, this is why we do it. We've always done it this way. It's beautiful, and this is how we show our love to Panagia, or to Christ in their church. So it was a beautiful, beautiful childhood. But my own faith really started to blossom after college. So I went away to Middle Tennessee State University, which is south of Nashville, and there's no church there. It was about a 45-minute drive through Nashville to get to church. And I would go every once in a while. And then after I graduated, I moved into Nashville. And I was still maybe 20, 30 minutes away from church, so it was pretty far from me, living in Knoxville, a small city, it was around the corner. But anyway, it was also me being lazy. I would go, and when I would go, I was late, and I would never go to coffee hour. Like, that was horrifying to me. I didn't know anyone. And I did that for like maybe a year or two after living in Nashville. And then something happened. I think we had a chanter, like we have Dimitri here, And he left. I think he moved for his job or something, and we didn't have an in-house chanter. And there was no choir at the time, but there was talk of forming one. And I thought to myself, I love to sing. I always sang in the choir with my mom. Maybe I should do that. Maybe if I get involved with the choir, I can show up for church on time. Maybe that would help. So I emailed the choir director, and it was not very, sophisticated. It was just like, I like to sing. Do you have need for me? And she was so excited. She didn't have any altos at the time. So I started practicing with them, and sure enough, that just got me involved. I learned so many people's stories. I met, there's a lot of guys and people in choirs, and I met all their grandchildren. I met their kids. Nashville became my home, and it was through being active in the choir that happened. Even though I would go to church, I didn't truly become a home until I started becoming active. And so then, when I moved to Charlotte, I was blessed with a large family that I married into, and I'm very, very blessed for that. So I already had that, but I already knew that in order for me to truly feel at home and for my kids to feel at home, that I was going to have to, this was going to be my church, and I'd have to, put my faith here and my time. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so that's how I started.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful in many ways. One of the reasons I think it's beautiful is because I hear so much of my story and that story. And I think we, so often, many of us find our homes in churches that are not churches that we were raised in. And without us knowing, that's the piece of our life that we needed really to reestablish our roots in our faith. Because so often we get used to the way things are done at our home churches. We get used to the way things are done in our own homes. And then we get sent out to the world, whether it's through the workforce or through higher education. And those ways are different because of the little T traditions that we have in our different homes and our different churches. So I think it's beautiful that you found a way through ministry, really, to find your quote-unquote calling. Well, it is a calling, for a music ministry. So that's a beautiful thing. So let me ask you something different, though. Remind me, you said your father joined the church when, were you born, or how old?
When my older brother was born.
Okay.
So it was 5 years into their marriage.
Gotcha. Okay. So knowing the context of young people in our church, did you ever feel like, because you mentioned that your father was the person you would go to ask questions
Mm-hmm.
about the church, did you in any way feel that you maybe were different or maybe experienced the church differently because your father was a convert and wasn't someone who had been raised in the church, based on social context that maybe pressure from kids in the church?
Absolutely, yeah. So my mother is actually first generation. So she's, so I'm second generation, and I have an American father. So it is very different. I don't think that it changes. It doesn't change. We're all united through orthodoxy, so that doesn't change. That was never different. There were some cultural things that were different. But I did Greek school, and I was right there, doing the Greek dances that my mom knew, and she would teach. She showed us, and there were some little T traditions that you find are different. But I don't think that is from having an American father. I think that's just from the different regions of Greece. Mm-hmm. So even in Nashville, and I was without my parents, they did things differently than we do here in Charlotte. Just because the people who started those traditions in Nashville are from a different area of Greece. Now, luckily, Knoxville's connected to Charlotte in many different ways. There's a lot of the same families, so we had a lot of the same traditions. So it was very much like coming home here. But I do think that having the American father was different. I think that it was, I think it was beneficial to have him. I think and not just, it was just a blessing to have him, his personality. He can read something and 20 years later, he can tell you exactly what it said. He just has a really good memory. And so he just always had questions. And I find that I don't always have the answers with my kids. And so sometimes I'll even call him and I'll say, hey, Nico asked me this question, do you know why? And he'll say, yeah, I did know, this is why we do this. It was really funny. I'll tell you what it was. It was a couple months ago. Nico asked me why, Nico's my son, for those who don't know, he's 6, and he asked, why do we eat andidro right after communion? Why do we always get bread right after communion? I don't know. I never knew the answer to that. It's just something that we do. But I called my dad and he said, oh yeah, he said, we eat it because, in case there's some of the communion still left in your mouth, it washes it down so then you don't spit it out and, essentially spit out Christ. And I was blown away by that. I was like, oh, there's a reason for it. But anyway, so I'm digressing, but it was very nice to have him in the household. But then again, my mother, she showed faith in like, it's like he was with the mind and she was with the heart. Like she just knew it. It was in her blood, and it was beautiful to have her as well.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And I share in having a father who was not Orthodox growing up, and so it's such a blessing, especially as we find ourselves in these times where I think the Archbishop might have used the term mixed marriage as a way to start, but trying to find a different name for it. People who are interdenominational, within the marriages of our church. But that's so wonderful that, like you said, your mother, it's in her blood. It's what she's known her whole life. And here she has her husband, your father, who has learned through, matriculation, intentional, unintentional, and, he found his way to the church sacramentally. And that's a beautiful thing. So you went to school at Middle Tennessee, then you moved to Nashville. So talk us through Nashville and your move to Charlotte and how that happened. And
so I actually had, I ended up moving back to Knoxville in between just for maybe 2 years. It was one of those things where I don't know, I'm trying to even think what the year was. I think it was like 2008, 2009, the economy was not so great. So I was looking for something new, for a new job, and Nashville just wasn't, it just wasn't where I saw myself forever. I loved it. It was super fun in my 20s, but my family was, actually most of my family my extended family is in Ohio and Rochester, New York. And just my parents are in Knoxville, and I just wanted to be back with them. And so I thought, well, let me just, I had to find a new place to work anyway, so I moved home, and I got a job in Knoxville. It wasn't anything in my major, it was just something, and a year later, I went to a Greek night with one of my friends here in Charlotte, and that's where I met my husband. And we, a year later, we were married, so that's how I got to Charlotte. It was very fast. I almost don't even remember that time in Knoxville, but it was great because I got a good job here when I moved here. One of my friends from high school was here, and she worked at this place. It's called Magellan, and they bought and sold aircraft and the parts of the aircraft, and I just didn't even know that existed, but they needed somebody in their finance department, which is my background. So it was just beautiful. I worked there for a while. But anyway, so that's how I ended up in Charlotte. It's not very exciting, but it was a fun time in my life.
Yeah. People dog on Greek nights all the time.
It works. It actually works.
That's wonderful. Oh, I have so much hope now. So, you mentioned your son, Nico, and I know you've got two beautiful kids. So, as you've moved to Charlotte, you've gotten married, you're going to start a family. How is being a mother in the church? Because being a mother, one, could probably
Yeah.
have a series of TED Talks. But I'm curious your perspective, being a mother within the Orthodox Church at the time that you first had Nico, but now as your kids are rapidly growing up.
Yeah.
How has that evolved, and how has your perspective, changed over time?
Being a mother in the church is beautiful. It is the biggest blessing to have our church to get us through motherhood and childhood, and also just watching them and their faith strengthens your own. Nico asking questions all the time, I have to figure out the answer, and then, I learn things through him and with him. And then my daughter, she just loves Pania. She's always pointing out Pania, and it's just the most beautiful thing. I mean, yeah, it's hard to get up on Sundays and get everybody dressed, but when it becomes a habit, they expect it, and they know what clothes to pull out, and they know to be ready at a certain time. And I kind of let them roam freely in church. I don't know if that's the best thing to do, but I want them to feel like it's their home. And so if their Yaya is 4 rows back, I'm going to let them walk and jump into Yaya's arms. Yeah. And I feel like that makes it just more comfortable for everybody. It makes it easier on me. Yaya's happy. She gets to hold the grandbaby and, all those things. But it's good. It's good to see that. It's good for them to see us go to church all the time and to work in the church. It makes them want to work in the church too. I don't remember why, but they needed help in the narthex. I think it was one of the youth liturgies, and I had to go back there, and Nico was so excited. He ran back and he wanted to help with the candles, and he was, putting out the candles and taking them out, and it just gave him something to do, and it's just really nice. But back to your original questions, being a mother in the church it's a blessing. It strengthens your faith, and the kids just, if you look and you see it through their eyes, it's just beautiful.
So, as someone who is away from the city in which you grew up in, obviously you married into a quite large family.
Yes.
Talk about the importance, though, of not just having your nuclear family, your extended family through your brother-in-laws, your sister-in-laws, cousins, as a mother, but also a mother who is, who has moved a few times, and like we talked about, established your roots, this time what I would think is firmly in this church and in this city. Talk about the importance of a spiritual family and the role it plays, not just in your life personally, but also the life of your whole family, your children.
So having a spiritual family is really important. I mean, beyond the nuclear and the extended, it's just the same as any other family. You learn from each other, you share your experiences, and you just grow stronger, and hopefully, you're growing stronger in Christ. I have a kumbara in Nashville, and I was having trouble during one of my pregnancies, and she found out about it, and she sent me some oil, and she said, this helped me when I was giving birth to my Anna, use this, and it was just something beautiful that I would have never, that my family didn't know about, but having her in my spiritual family, she was able to help me through that time. just little things like that. And, it's nice to, I've noticed now during the pandemic, the people who come every Sunday has gotten a little bit smaller, but it's the same people, and it's so nice to see them every Sunday, and you feel like when you see them, it's just this breath of fresh air. It's familiar, and you're like, oh, I'm home, I'm here, and I see their kids, and we smile, and they see mine, and it's just very nice. It's really nice.
You talked about the lack of desire wanting to go to coffee hour when you were in
Right.
Nashville.
Oh, yeah.
So thinking about your mentality then and where you were in your life, now obviously you've built a family here in Charlotte, you've joined the church through marriage and whatnot. To someone who might be new to the area, to someone who might be coming to church but not really being part of the church quite yet because they're new, they haven't met people, especially now during a pandemic where the social aspect of a Sunday really has been removed. What would you say to someone who's trying to build those roots and trying to make an effort to become part of the community, pandemic or no pandemic?
Right.
What advice would you give to someone who's wanting to belong in a city or in a church that's brand new to them?
I know exactly what I would say. I'd say call Father Vasilios. He will introduce you to everyone. He will find something for you to do. He is the best. He will, you say, hi, I'm new here. I don't know anyone. I don't know what to do. He will find you, and he will find you a friend. He is we are so blessed to have him here. But no, for any, yes, but anybody in any church, I would say the first person to call would be the priest. That's what they're here for, is to find help. And back to my own experience in coffee hours, I didn't know to call the priest, and I would try to go over there, and I would get coffee, and I'd stand there, super awkward, and I just, you don't know who to talk to. So I wouldn't say that coffee hour is the place to start. I would, call, if you don't feel comfortable calling the priest, call the choir director, if you are interested in teaching Sunday school, just send an email, say, I want to teach Sunday school, and you'll meet people. It'd be great.
There is a beautiful opportunity for that today. After our liturgy, we had a young man who Father Christian did not recognize, and he simply asked, hello, what's your name?
Yeah.
Are you new here? And the young man said, no, he had been living here about 6 months. And from there, we learn names and invitations to, come for dinner when it's safe, of course, to do so. But Father Christian was right on it.
Yeah, good.
And it was simple, right? It was simple. It was just a question, and I think, and it happens so often. I see people when they're recognized as someone who is new here, and they're asked about themselves, and they're invited to things. You can see that switch go off to where it's not just I'm just someone in the pews. I'm someone who's being invited into the life of the community. So, but sometimes it takes that email to a ministry head or that phone call to a priest and saying, hey, I'm here, introduce me, get me into the flow. Which brings a great caveat, since you did mention Sunday school.
Yeah.
You serve on our Sunday school board, and you have for several years. This year, I think, taking a little bigger piece of the pie because of the worthy, quote-unquote, retirement of Miss Georgia Herricus. But
Still haven't forgiven.
No, George, if you're watching, you still owe us. But yeah, talk about your work with Sunday school. I know we work together, but I'm curious to how your involvement with Sunday school began, where you are now with trying to organize Sunday school with your board with a pandemic here that's
Do we
been
have like another hour?
yeah a pandemic that's now crossed over into 2 Sunday school years,
Yeah.
and kind of where you guys are as a board and where you want to go, in the next few months with what we have in front of us.
So, that's a big question there. Where do we want to go? No, let's start with how I got on the board.
Sure.
Georgia asked me to join the board. Georgia and I have become friends throughout the years, and I don't even remember why. I think I had mentioned something about helping with, I think maybe I said, oh, do you want help with this one thing? And then she was like, join the committee, help me with everything. So that's how that happened.
That's Georgia for you.
But when I first started, I mean, they eased me in. Like I did the bulletin boards, and I think I, just did some like paperwork stuff. But there's a lot of work on the Sunday school. It's such a big community. We have so many kids and so many programs, and right now, it's all scaled back. But we have a committee of 5, and it's a totally new committee now than when I first started, but they're great, and everybody kind of has a certain role. Like one person takes the Christmas pageant that we do, one person does the oratorical festival, and then, anyway, we have a bunch of things. Now, right now, we don't have a whole lot going on just because of the pandemic, and it's just hard. Everybody's just like, stretched thin right now. Everybody's got so much going on. I mean, I know that I've got, I'm homeschooling my son practically, and then, Zooms here and there for everything, and it's just hard. Right now, I mean, I just don't want to, asking about what are we going to do. I want to just breathe. I want to just get through this together, and we will, and it'll be fine, and we'll see what our need is in a few months, and then we'll go from there.
What is the importance of religious education in the context of a community?
So, to be able to answer questions like, why do we eat andidro after communion? That is the importance of religious education. No. So, the Sunday school is very important. It is the most important part of Sunday school is attending Divine Liturgy, because everything that we talk about in Sunday school has to do with worship and how we worship and why we worship and why we do this and why we do that. And if you can't actually see it, if you don't know what they're talking about in Sunday school, it's going to go in one ear and out the other. It's a way to become stronger in your faith, but you have to start with faith. So that's just my little soapbox. I'm just going to say Sunday school is very important. It's important to discuss too with your peers, what is going on. Like as they get older, as we get past this is the hymn that we sing at this time. This is your saint, and this is the day, and the fun things. It's very important to have a group of people that you're comfortable with, that you can talk about something that you're struggling with. And it doesn't have to be anything major. It can just be, like me, I'm always late to church. Why I'm always late to church. Like they can help you with little things, and you're not going to find that anywhere better than in a Sunday school program.
I've learned that so much, especially in the last year and a half, that the kids that you're going to look to, your peers that you're going to rely on, largely when we send these kids out to the workforce, when we send them out to go off to college and higher education, it's their friends that they've made in Sunday school. And when I've asked the question, knowing that it's evident in my life, but just asking the question to see if the kids that I teach can answer it, why is it that your church friends, why is it that your friends from your Sunday school are your closest friends that you have? And the answer I always hear is, because John, they just get it. They understand who we are at our core. Because like we tell our kids, orthodoxy is not just something we do on Sundays and the occasional Friday nights as we walk around the church or the occasional weekday morning if it's our name day. Orthodoxy is a way of life. It encompasses everything we do. That old adage, we sleep, breathe, eat, talk, orthodoxy. It's true. And I think when people have struggles, they turn to their Orthodox friends. When they have joys in life that they try to celebrate, they turn to their Orthodox friends. Now, not saying our non-Orthodox friends are not important, but like the kids were saying, they get it. Mm-hmm. They understand how we approach life. And so you're right, being able to not only sit in a class with our peers, but also worship with our peers is so important, because that builds that spiritual family, that builds that church family. For those of you who tuned into our first episode, Peter Thermopoulos talked about the idea of strengthening the spirituality of parishioners with the initiative coming from the parishioners, using the example of our clergy. And I think it's so important and so crucial to teach that to our kids, is that the spiritual formation begins in the household, begins in our friend groups. And so the work of Sunday school is so important, because it instills those values and it instills that reinforcement that we need, to build our spiritual lives. So logistically, being a part of a Sunday school program this large, what is one thing that you've enjoyed about being part of the Sunday school program here at Holy Trinity? We'll put COVID to the side, mm-hmm. because that's kind of rocked everyone's world. But what is one thing that you've enjoyed about being part of this Sunday school program?
So one thing that we have only done one time, but it was so fun, was we had this I can't think of the word, but it was just within our own Sunday school program. The high school kids did a little Bible Bowl competition, and we did it like Jeopardy style, and Father Jonathan read the questions, and I don't remember whose idea it was, but Georgia was like, Georgia got really excited about it, and she brought it to me, and so I put the questions together, and I gave them little study packets. And on their own, this was at their own time, they didn't do this in Sunday school. It wasn't part of the curriculum. They just, on their own, they learned this material, and then they came together and they competed. And watching the excitement when they got something right, or, which was a lot. I mean, they knew it. They were good. But when they got, when they hit the buzzer first, and the competition that was there for a Bible Bowl was so fun. That was probably my favorite thing that we've done in this program.
But there's something about Bible Bowl that's so exciting.
Oh, so exciting.
But it's also exciting for those of us who are observing, because you can see their excitement for their knowledge about the church, mm-hmm. with the competition aspect added into it. But I remember seeing photos from that, and just seeing the sheer joy on their faces from answering trivia questions about the church.
I know, it was great. We did the scriptures. We did the Gospels of Holy Thursday, I think is what we did. Mm-hmm. And it was so good.
Yeah.
It was really nice. And we only did it once, because it was in May, the year before the pandemic, and so then last year it got canceled, and then this
Right.
year. But we'll start it again. It'll be fun.
That's the hope. That's the hope. We can return to a time where we can have
Yeah.
Bible Bowl and Sunday school in person, and the church is full, the classroom's full, and
Yes.
the ministry life full again.
Mhm.
So, as someone who you mentioned moved from, outside of Charlotte, who did not grow up in Charlotte per se, you join it's growing, but it's a select few of us who, haven't been at Holy Trinity all of our lives, or who don't have a ton of, family in the area. What is it about Holy Trinity that you enjoy that makes this your home? Because like you said, orthodoxy is orthodoxy. We're united by the Holy Trinity. We're united through Christ. We're united through the fact that, we are the ancient church, and we've been around for over 2,000 years. But what is it about Holy Trinity, other than the fact that you married someone?
Right.
What makes Holy Trinity your home?
I have actually had this discussion before with my mother-in-law, and there's just something about Holy Trinity. It's more of a feeling. It just feels like it. That's all I can say. It's. I think that it's because there are so many strong, faithful people that are a part of this community, and you just feel good when you walk in the door because of their faith. All the little traditions that we have here are just, we take for granted. We just don't have other places. The 40-day liturgies that we do for Christmas, and then we can submit the names of our loved ones. It's just beautiful. There are other, take Knoxville, for example. We always have one priest, no help. So Winter Youth Rally comes every December 26th through 28th. So my father is Stephen. He never has a liturgy for his name day because the priest has to go to the youth rally. I mean, we have a service for everything here, and there's always an Artoclasia. There's always, I've gotten to know the memorial service by heart because there's one every Sunday. I mean, it's just beautiful little things like that. I could go on and on. The daffodils on September 14th. It's just home. It's a great place to be, and I'm so blessed that I'm here and that my kids get to grow up here.
I think of the phrase, you just don't understand it until you're in it.
Right.
So come and see, right?
Yeah.
So my last question, as we move through the beginning of this year, and as we try to meander the waters of, now a second calendar year of the pandemic, what is your hope as a mother, as a wife, as a member of this community? What is your hope as we enter into this new year, as we try to, remain faithful and intentional Orthodox Christians? What's your hope as we move forward and try to live our lives in a way that seeks praise from God, as we're trying to figure out what life is right now with all the unknowns?
Well, I hope it makes us all stronger. I hope that we don't take for granted what we had before and what we hope to have again, and what we have now. I mean, thank God that we are able to come back into the church at this point. I just hope it makes us stronger. That's all I can say.
Yeah, because I think that's the strength of the people in our families, the people in our church families that will get us through the the strength and the power of Christ to guide us, because he certainly did not give us anything that we can't undertake with his help. So yeah, I agree. Hopefully this makes us stronger so that we can become more intentional, we can become more purposeful, and in the future we can enjoy all those traditions that you talked about and not take them for granted, because we are blessed here at Holy Trinity to have so many great and faithful people and so many opportunities to seek Christ and to love Christ. So a beautiful answer, absolutely. Sarah, thanks for coming on. Thanks for joining us. And thanks to all of our viewers for joining us again. We wish you all a great rest of the month. Be sure to tune in next month in February as we hear more stories from the people that make up the Ark of Holy Trinity Cathedral. Until next time, be well and be one with God. Good afternoon.